our dear friend from the Dutch embassy. But this is my opportunity to thank them again for supporting this fabulous experience of the World Press Photo World Tour. I want to thank you again here. And offering this panel as part of the and offering educational program by the WordPress Photo. So لو في أي حد في اسكندرية, it will be touring to Alexandria on the 4th, starting on the 4th of March. Thank you.
Thank you, Marwa, so much, and thank you for having us here, and thank you for also having WordPress Photo in Egypt. It's such a pleasure, actually, to bring the exhibition here and to tour Alexandria. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to be discussing all of these projects and bring this conversation. So again, thank you, and thank you for the Cairo Week team. Thank you everyone for being here with us tonight. My name is Dina Hafez. I'm the policy officer for culture and development at the Embassy of the Netherlands in Egypt. Just quickly introduce everyone and then get to the topic. We have today Ambassador Dewi van der Weerd visiting from The Hague. She's the Ambassador for International Cultural Cooperation at the Dutch Foreign Ministry. She's visiting Egypt for a few days, so welcome. Of course, Karim Hayawan, غني عن التعريف, photographer, filmmaker, designer, architect, and everything. No, of course, pleasure, Karim, to have you with us on the panel tonight. And again, Marwa, Leila, founder of Photopia, and of course, the Cairo Photo Week. Thank you, Marwa, so much. Thank you for being with us on the panel. So the idea of our discussion tonight is to talk about the social responsibility of photography and how photographers have a responsibility towards the community and the role that they play in shaping, informing, and empowering local communities. And it's a wonderful opportunity to have like 3 different perspectives to talk on the topic. So we have, of course, Ambassador Devi. She's talking from a government and a policy perspective, more of a wider overview and an umbrella on the topic. We have Marwa talking from an organizational and an institutional overview, working with different photographers, different disciplines, and different fields in photography. And we have from practitioner overview, so Karim would be the one on the ground doing the actual work and having this direct contact with the communities. So actually, I would like to start by asking you, Karim, as someone who's on the field, how do you interact with the topic, and how do you see your role as a photographer?
I think art is all about the exchange. And I think the term community is a very wide and broad definition, because there's the photographic community, there's the wider community, and then there's the wider and wider community. When I started photography, it was a very intuitive practice, whereas street photography was my source and main inspiration. Awareness here was the social engagement. I was quite lucky that when I started practicing, or maybe a little bit down the road, social media played a very, very big role in that. So when I started posting my work, a lot of people were wondering how to reach such areas. Young photographers were extremely keen. And this is when a very organic photographic practice took place, which was just me and some friends roaming the streets of Cairo.
That's around when?
That was 2013, I think, 2013. And a lot of people were curious as to where are these places. And that to me was extremely baffling, because for my friends and intellects that don't really know their own city well was quite disturbing to myself. So this was the first layer of social engagement, was to actually take people around me and go around touring the city, each with their own perspective. There's no specific direction or aesthetic or concept, just go, roam, explore. And that group kept on expanding and expanding and expanding, because we created a little community there. This community, the only request was to share your photographs using a simple hashtag and pull down all your photographs of that. So we have a long-term document that existed until today, which carries around maybe 35,000 photographs, organic, with no specific manifesto, just everyone doing their thing. And then after that, we thought, how about having a name for that? It was that organic, it had no name, just no one owns it, just everyone's. The streets are ours, so we just go and explore, pool our images. How I engaged and connected with younger photographers and Photographers International and local, organically, as one big family, is social engagement, is social responsibility, is reflecting your environment and surrounding.
And how were you received by the community who you were engaging with?
Um, Very welcoming. I mean, yeah, I think it's all about intention. When your intention is clear and you roam the streets with the clear intention of meeting and knowing and exploring and trespassing slightly, um, eventually this grew into something else. We decided, how about we throw an exhibition twice a year, um, everyone equal, young, established, local, international, unified price, unified positioning, everyone is the same, which actually encouraged a lot of young photographers, whereas the parents didn't see them as talent or see them as future photographers or see them as pursuing this as a career, as a passion they should follow. The proceeds of such exhibitions went back to the areas that we frequently visited. So we built a playground for children, we built a little library in collaboration with one of the NGOs existing on the ground, which was in that case Mugawra, because Mugawra are established and they guarantee that what we do is sustained and kept in place. So, I mean, it's a full rounded conversation. It's between supporting young photographers, it's between exploring our city, it's going back to the community, it is encouraging young photographers to pursue what they love. And it's extremely organic. So, I mean, CNN saw us and they had an interview twice. And they actually highlighted that because also became slightly touristic. I mean, any street photographer from all over the world that wanted to explore, this was a safe space for them. They can, it's for free, for God's sakes. I mean, just go. Mahdi was one of the people who always joined. And I mean, I met Mahdi through the walks, I met Saleh Bashir through the walks, I met Fariz Zatoun through the walks. Saleh had just arrived to Egypt, was studying at university, and for him this was something extremely new. Now he is an established photographer, rocking the world with his subject matter and his belief in what he does. I mean, we all grew up out of pure love. That's social engagement.
That's amazing, and the energy and the passion that you speak with is very energizing. Marwa, yeah, from an organizational and institutional perspective, how do you see your engagement? And I know also the story of how Photopia started out was motivated by your felt responsibility to do something different.
Yes, I think many people know that it was initiated after our glorious revolution, and I still insist on using the word glorious because it was a turning point for everyone, not just on a massive scale, but also شخصيا. Everyone felt, I mean, most of the people who were down on the street, they felt that they own back our country, and we feel like it's about time to start a new era and a new phase. So I quit my banking career and I established Photopia. Why photography? Obviously, inside I have always had passion for photography or just documenting. I was never a professional photographer, but we established this with my partner to fill in a gap in specific topics. Teaching. So yes, we have always, it is established based on not just on the teaching technical and the artistic aspects of photography, but also we offer lots of talks, and sometimes we embed ethics, photography ethics in our workshops, the structure of the workshops. And it's always an essential part of any educational program or any educational content that we offer. So if you're specifically asking, yes, it was founded based on the ethics. I mean, the beauty of the revolution, which incorporated ethics, lots of basic ethics, and we elaborated that. We teach even on the commercial side. There is business ethics, and I'm gonna second Karim on the street and like everything. So part of besides that, the government sometimes scare people. I mean, over the past 10 years, they scare people and they always mispresent photographers. Lately not, thank God, but back in the days, even the normal walking man on the street, he would be weary about any photographer. But now, but again, it's because some of the photographers, let me be honest, they don't take permission before or after taking the photo on the street. So again, this was part of our campaign and awareness campaign, and we always promote this among our educational program.
And Devi, so from a different perspective, and also maybe because of your role as an ambassador and your work in different countries, like how do you see this playing out in different contexts?
You mean it had the impact?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think working with Dutch and international artists everywhere in the world is really one of the most inspiring things to do, because what happens when you have people from different countries working together is they learn from each other and they get to know each other, and they are able actually to imagine also what it's like to be in another region, to be in another country, but to still encounter the same kind of issues. So what we see in our international cultural policy is that what works best is actually co-creation. So artists, creatives, designers, they come together, they meet, and they see if it is possible to work on certain issues. And to give you, for example, an idea, well, actually, the Egyptian architect May Al-Ibrashi, we just visited some of the projects that she has been doing in Cairo. And so she has been working with international designers, some of them also Dutch, in reintroducing the, let's say, classical architecture to children from schools through setting up a whole program of educational games through international cooperation. And so what you see is actually what international cultural cooperation does is it creates a dialogue. It creates a dialogue between different countries, between people maybe also with different backgrounds. And in this way, it opens doors. It is also from the point of view of someone working for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it can be very good for your bilateral relations. And for example, with Morocco, we have been organizing exhibitions. So there was an exhibition last year in the Netherlands of Moroccan artists and also Moroccan contemporary art of artists that were living in the Netherlands. And this coming year, a Dutch exhibition will go to Morocco. And you see that it brings actually so much positive energy that it really is important. But one other, I think, very crucial aspect is actually if you are working with designers, for example, or with photographers, they are able actually to show us maybe things that we were not able to see ourselves yet. So to stimulate your fantasy, to also, let's say, show us a future. If you look, for example, at climate change, it is quite clear that we really have to transform our societies and do different things. And designers can help you with their innovative thinking to already arrive, let's say, at that point. And in that way, really stimulate and inspire us.
And actually, and building on this point, Karim as a designer and a photographer, so you're wearing two hats. And you were speaking about raising awareness and engaging with the local communities. But how do you see this play out between if you really want to shock through images and showing something that people might not be aware of, and between the designer who, you have an eye for aesthetics and how you want things to be beautified in a way. So how do you create this balance without affecting the real message?
I think each artist, designer, human being with the need to express has their own language and visual way of expressing that. As one, I do not use shock at all. For me, it's all about the soft, poetic, indirect message, because people are fed up with shocked. So for me, it's all about the little, poetic, indirect. You need to let things seep in. You need to let things take their time and communicate gently. I think we need softness and gentle approach in life, and I think I practice that both in design and art equally. I mean, one of my favorite works was a video piece called Caught Up Somewhere Down, which was debating the futility of history and how history is constantly rewritten and how we perceive history and interpret history, which was sparked after a long conversation with my father, who has witnessed so many encounters, and yet we are the ones calling for change. This piece was so reflective, and this piece is extremely melancholic and extremely intense, and it leaves you with this little brick inside. It's really intense, yet a little smile. You don't know where it hit you and how it hit you. I think this kind of message is the way I express myself. I mean, everyone has their own, but for me, I believe that this little seeping, easy, gentle, poetic way of expressing things applies both to design and art as well. We were very lucky to have the opportunity to help designing the community school of Tawasul, Stabla Anta, which I think is a model that is absolutely inspiring, whereas dropouts from schools were not really encouraged to pursue their education because parents always found them more beneficial to work at a very young age. So what Yasmina Abu Yusuf did, the founder of that school, was just take a very old building, turn it into a community school where 3 days they study and 3 days they practice proper craftsmanship. And then she sells their products for the parents to accept them, to allow them to study. This school grew, and instead of the old building, she came to us and helped designing the school with the intention of creating a manual, a design manual that is for free, that's available online for any other schools to be built, designed and built in underprivileged areas for a chain reaction, because designing one school does not really help much. This school has become an extremely inspiring model. The whole area is changing. The parents are working at the school now. The children, like it's the third generation now, they practice theater, they practice music, acrobats, they're touring Cairo and Egypt with their performance. And now, 8 years later, I'm actually going back for a workshop with Farida Yusuf and Amina Abdous with Tamkeen so I'm wearing the other hat now. So it's basically using the school that we have built 8 years ago, and now we are giving workshops, a series of workshops, myself, Ali Zar'i, and a whole array of beautiful artists. So I mean, that's another full circle between design, but then again, it's easy, poetic, and then the message goes through.
And it's amazing, like the snowball effect of like starting something small and then how it gets bigger and bigger, and the impact gets wider. So I think that's also something that really needs to be considered when working on projects, because usually, and Marwa can tell us more about this, because photography projects is about capturing moments or capturing seconds, but then afterwards what happens? And we see this with also the topics that are discussed by WordPress Forum. So how do you see that?
We have always promoted storytelling, even when it comes to commercial photography. The first edition of Cairo Food Week was called, it was themed Tell Your Visual Story, because back then the use of term storytelling was becoming very, very popular. At the, it was the start of using this. So we wanted to promote the idea that the photo, any photo, it has to tell a story. It has to say, it has to be telling. It has to say something to the crowd. Just like this perfect example of having the word, the best 24 photos across the world featured here. I mean, I'm sure that there are other photos that could be as good as these, but at least we have 24 winners here that you can, it's not just a cinematic experience that you would make you feel thrilled, but it's also a powerful educational experience for the young people. Just as like Farouk Ibrahim's, and if you visit Farouk Ibrahim, after unboxing his work, apart from the ones that we used to just randomly see on Google, this is only 3% of his work. And the guy, I mean, Nadia Munir, the curator that I preferred that she would work on this project, she was stunned because she teaches at the AUC, and she says why am I giving reference to international photographers while we have this amazing legend in photography, and he's Egyptian. He's a legend in layering, legend in portraits, legend in motion, in so and his again storytelling it has to. If you visit Farouk Ibrahim's, you will see that every photo, without even knowing who is in the photo, it will tell a massive story. So yes, we promote storytelling all the time. We make sure that even a commercial photographer who shoots food, while we teach commercial photography, food, fashion, it has to tell a specific story. So, and we also curate Sard every year, every time, Sard exhibition, just to highlight the most recent documentary stories in Egypt. We just try to cover as much as we can. So again, we focus a lot on documentary and socio-political, socio-economic storytelling.
No, I'm very glad that our discussion is leading us to talk about the different exhibitions that are in currently with the Cairo Photo Week. So we're speaking about Farouk Ibrahim, Saad, and also the other project on sustainability and the climate crisis, and and WordPress photo. So we've been praising the diversity that the exhibit that for this edition of Cairo Photo Week, but it's also about the topics that are different in nature. And we were discussing this, like how like seeing also the topics again for the WordPress photo. It's very some of them are different to what the audiences here are sometimes are used for. And again, I go back to the shocking effect, because to me personally, when I first saw them, they left a big impression on me. So WordPress Photo, of course, is a Dutch organization, and it's been running since the 90s, and it stands for freedom of expression and representation and storytelling, of course. So how do you see the role in bringing communities together, especially from cultural diplomacy perspective?
Yeah, I think that is definitely what WordPress Photo is doing. And what is so interesting about this exhibition is that you see stories from all over the world, but yet many of these stories are also things that directly have an impact on us personally. Because again, you see wildfires, but you also see a girl that has decided to grow her hair so long that she's just going to leave it like that until she is able to go to school again, because she is at home because of COVID. And we have all actually been through these experiences. And I think so what this exhibition does is it actually shows us, a few things. It shows us that in a way you might feel sometimes confined in the place where you are. But then you see that everywhere else in the world, maybe people would have similar problems and would have similar situations. But you can also be surprised. And you can also see, for example, some social developments in other countries. So it gives you actually, it broadens your imagination and your mind. And what I think is very strong about WordPress Photo is that they have also let's say, developed their regional presences. So they have set up regional juries. And so from each region, the regional jury will look at which photographers they think are best. And by the way, there is also an Egyptian winner here amongst the photographs. And there is also an Egyptian judge now in the regional jury. So you see that they are not only global, but they're also localizing. And I think that is extremely important because you want actually to have also the local view on situations told to the world. And not maybe a Western view or an American view. So you want actually that each region can speak up for itself. And this is what is happening. And what I personally think is also important is that this exhibition, it is interesting for us adults, let's say, but the effect that it has on school children, for example, or students, is also very big. And I think the education program that comes along with it, the possibility for school children to visit and to talk about, let's say, these stories that they're seeing, is also of tremendous importance.
So, speaking again on the how the visual culture and how like in Egypt, really, our relationship with cameras they goes way back, like the film industry and growing up in households. I think like all of us, we have these little DV, what they're called, the VCR cameras, the little cameras, and doing home videos and so on. So there's a very big visual culture here. And then with the growing social media, and now that with cameras on the mobiles, how do you see this has changed the practice of photography, and does it really help or harm? Like you were speaking about raw, and this is I know the theme of this edition, but also from a social perspective, how do you see this playing out?
Well, my answer is always going to be controversial. So, so yeah, for me, everything is fantastic. I mean, every tool you have in your hand, you should use it to your best. You should use it to the way. I mean, again, the core of the matter is who you are and what you carry inside. Any vehicle that takes you there is just super. We have to somehow use everything we have in order to reflect what we carry and what we want to, what the message we have should be expressed. So, honestly, as much as I love raw and I love the whole culture of the practice and the technician aspect of it, the technical aspect of it, I also appreciate the facilitation. Everyone can express freely, where my 9-year-old daughter can create a little video and share something and develop. So having this tool so democratized with everyone enables everyone to really focus on the concept and the emotion. It takes away a lot of barriers. Of course, it's abused. Of course, it's become redundant. Of course, there's this traffic of endless images. But then again, I'm an optimist, and I think this, in a way, calibrates on its own. We let the viewer and the audience judge, and that's the best way to do. I mean, trying to control a methodology has never worked. Has never ever worked. I believe that the freedom of expression, if we really practice freedom of expression, anything works. Anything, everything works. Technique is important. Camera is important. Film is important. Raw is important, but expression is equally important. Freedom is equally important. Young kids being able to remove all these boundaries, feel the freedom of using their phones and editing. I mean, the workshop I was giving with Haney is all about filters. We were actually doing the complete opposite.
You're not happy about it?
Of what? Actually, I love Marwa for that. I mean, it's about the idea. I mean, my friends, video editors and film editors, they look at what I post on my stories and they're so annoyed. They're like, why are you doing this? Why are you using filters like that? Yeah, because they go back to the time where they had to do mapping, and mapping takes like 3 days to render. And now I do it on my story on Instagram. It takes 3 seconds to render. And then my message goes out. Why not? And then it defies the technique. It defies the white cube. It defies the whole art industry. It reminds the art industry that we, the artists, are free. We will use whatever we have. 1,500 people view my stories every day versus 150 who visit exhibition spaces on daily basis. I win. It's simple and it's fun.
I just want to highlight that the theme back, it is not about going back in the days using the basic, just using film, for instance. No, it's about going back to the it's like a metaphor just to go back to the origin of the craft. It's the proper craft, where we have Maggie Stieber, for instance, teaching the proper documentary story building, and we have Karim teaching a very modern, very digitized workshop using filters. Again, it's by the proper education. So it's not about going back in the days and using old tools and be outdated or like not progressive enough. It's on the contrary. It's just about stopping and making up the proper image, not just taking the image and run, or like what I call the fleeting image on social media. We still have to use social media. We cannot escape social media. It's an essential part of our progress. We cannot deny its presence. It's just about when you post on social media, post something that is properly made.
صح.
Think of I mean, build a project, just make the image, take time to build the photo, not just snippets, unless it's like for maybe that you are a photojournalist, that you need to cover something that it's happening instantly, like covering clashes or something. But it's just to promote the proper practice, bringing the right speakers to teach. So we are never anti. We're not anti what's happening, progression of the photo. It's totally.
I would like to add a little, I'm sorry to take your mic. I believe back to raw, and that's why I love working with Marwa as well, because back to raw is back to the raw human being. It's not back to the raw vehicle. It's not the vehicle, it's the human being. If we go back to raw emotion, to raw humanity, then everything serves the purpose. I believe if it's that, I mean, during that workshop, which was truly reminding young artists to play, to loosen up, to free themselves, to clear all the inhibitions. I mean, that was the real core of the workshop. And what we did was take the team, once to Souq Silah, which is an underprivileged area, and another to a shopping mall in 6 October, which is Arkan Plaza. Yeah, so we did both. Hani was extremely excited about Arkan because it's not really his environment. I'm always excited about Souq Silah. And then we asked him to somehow create a conversation between that's raw. It's not the tool, it's not the camera, it's the human being, it's the core essence of our humanity, which is going back to the raw emotion. This truly penetrates and infiltrates any medium, any tool, any Instagram filter, any camera. We always need to keep on reminding ourselves it's the raw inside.
Exactly. And this builds a strong story. If you go back to raw human, raw anything, this results.
Yes.
Yeah, but coming back actually to the role of social media, what I find really interesting also is that it is really something that democratizes art. So there are actually now so many people using different possibilities. If it's a TikTok clip or an Instagram or a Twitter, so you see that the amount, let's say, of different channels, let's say, for people to express themselves has really grown. And also, I think that regard the amount of users. So there is actually many children that are also extremely creative online. So I find that also something that is very strong. But I also see older people. I see 80-year-olds having their own Instagram channel and being very active.
Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, exactly.
Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, but so I really love that actually. You know that you there is really a possibility to do much more for people in this regard and a lower threshold.
Definitely. But also from an audience perspective, if you're getting bombarded like 24/7 with images, with a flood of images, and some of them may be like very inappropriate. So now like Facebook, they have this warning that, and they censor some of the pictures and they give warning before, you know, you scroll down and you're hit in your face. And I know that mental health is a topic in the Netherlands nowadays. And how do you see also the role of culture, and how does this play out with mental health, and how to protect both from, I mean, like we'll ask Karim also for how, as a practitioner who's in direct contact with this, how it plays out, but please tell us more about how this is going on in the Netherlands.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're totally right. I think this is, of course, the other side of the coin. We all know the stories about how Facebook is only showing us how happy people are, and you know, it's the happiness channel, let's say. I have to say that I do see now also more different kinds of reactions, and that there are actually quite a few people that are sharing also different things. So I think it is really important to also, yes, freedom of expression, yes, but to also still monitor what is happening by educating people. So by asking each other to still be respectful online and to also discuss this actually in groups and again also with kids, with students, what are the boundaries, let's say, of what you can do in also not harming someone else. And that is something that, if you're looking at the possibilities of art to influence it, I have a very interesting example. It is about a Dutch artist, and her name is Tinkerbell, and she had an experiment where she made a handbag out of her cat. So her cat had passed away, and she made a handbag. And so this led actually to loads and loads of hate mail. So she was receiving enormous amounts of hate mail by anonymous people mainly. And so what she then did is she tried to track down the people that had sent her the hate mail. And so it turned out to be rather easy, let's say, to then make a kind of portrait of the person that said you should lie under the ground and I never want to see you again. And then it turned out that these people, actually, when they saw that they were also being exposed, they really regretted actually that they had been so harsh on her as well. And so it was also a very interesting social experiment where you see that it's very easy when you're sitting at home on your couch to write something horrible, but when you're held responsible and accountable, that is a whole different story. So it was also very interesting, artistic experiment actually in this regard to see what is the effect that your actions have on someone, and are people prepared to still, take their responsibilities, which they should.
Yeah, I think the point of boundaries is very, very important now that we're living where everything, is on social media and everything is public. So where do you draw the line? And Karim, for you, like, where do you draw the line between getting personally attached and between your hat as a designer of
You
photography?
said it, nailed it perfectly. I think, yes, you need to define your boundaries. I think life is all about distance. You need to define the distance between yourself and life, things. Are you here? Are you there? Are you there? So I think awareness. I think a lot of awareness needs to be raised in that specific domain. I think the algorithm is extremely evil. I think Mark is extremely evil. But yeah, I think we have a huge responsibility to take it upon ourselves to raise such awareness to where to draw the line. I think we all know where the line needs to be drawn. I think it's something human. We know what's right and we know what's wrong, but like Dewi was saying right now, behind the screen, you allow yourself, you have the entitlement to actually feel you're masked, and then a lot of dark sides surface. So awareness, I think awareness. Blocking is almost near impossible because you're constantly bombarded. But again, you need to slalom your way through what you need to see and how you can perceive it and what you're ready to receive as well. Because I think we need time to discharge constantly. I mean, it's become a daily practice that we are constantly charged. We need to start going back to being bored. We need to learn being bored again, because when you're bored, you're creative. Huh?
To detox,
Discharge. You're constantly charged with positive and with negative, equally. But we do not have time to discharge. We don't have time to wait for the elevator, to stand in line. Your phone is always out. You have no patience for 5 seconds to wait for an elevator to arrive or to stand in line and just observe and smell and hear and just be alive. So it's a constant practice. It's not a specific practice, and I think each has his or her responsibility to learn to discharge, positive and negative, equally.
And Marwa, have you come across any projects that were, controversial, or did you think, oh, should I be supporting this? Should this be published? Is it right, wrong?
I don't recall specific thing, but if I'm gonna refer back to ethics and social media, when it comes to photography, definitely there is. There are some topics. Photos that has been published over the past years by Egyptians that I'm sure that they did not notice that it shouldn't have been published. That maybe invade someone's privacy. As simple as having a couple revealed who are their faces are revealed who are in love and they're just chilling by the Nile, this is for me, this is a red flag, and it goes viral, and it could hurt families, and it could hurt. Also featuring that big issue of that guy who killed the girl on the street a few months ago, and it was horrible. So again, it's a bit tricky, because yes, we need to expose what happened and how horrendous it was, but at the same time, this is a girl, and her life was taken in a very brutal way. So, and she has a family. So I'm sure, I hope that over time, photographers start to, even the citizen photographer who are not even a photographer, start realizing that it does affect people's lives and families, and for life it could cause traumas to so many. On the other hand, we have someone like Sahla Abdurrahman, who changed someone's life, not just Sahla, like so many other photographers, by, for instance, this beautiful boy who wanted to join a football, who was just practicing, doing the same practice, imitating the boys outside the fence of a football stadium, and he was just imitating them, and he wanted to like join them. So it was a very emotional shot, just one single shot that went viral, and he joined a very famous football club maybe 1 month later. So this is positive photography. This is photography for a cause. So before pressing post, think twice, because it could affect people's lives forever. Think positive, think positive. I know sometimes you just get angry because you want to expose ugliness. It's good to expose reality sometimes, because it's important to document horrible people, but always think of the other side of the story, the other parties of the story.
Control your dopamine.
Yeah, that's all. And this is when it comes to ethics. And always take permission, even if after you take the candid shot, go to the person and ask him if you are allowed to use this image. I know that sometimes it's good to take the shot before informing him, because it would be more natural and stuff. It's fine, but you have to take permission after taking it. And if he doesn't agree, you have to delete the image in front of him.
Yes, consent. I think it's a big point that, and it's across everything. That you need consent to publish, you need consent to discuss, you need consent to reveal information. So I think that's a big point. And I know we're running out of time, and this would be my last question to all of you. But I want to go back to the point about exchange, and we've been talking about like very culture-specific points. So how do you see the context, like, and its effect on when you're working on the international culture policy and working across all the world, basically? So how do you see this affects your role and doing culture projects?
Well, I think context, of course, is really important, because it depends where you are and who actually is the audience, and for which groups you are making things or you are talking to. So I think it is really important to engage actually with your audience and to think beforehand, who do I want to reach, and what is the impact that I actually would like to make. But then coming back maybe on what you also mentioned on the power of photography, I would like to give another example which I think is very interesting, and also some of his work is here today. It's a Dutch photographer, and he's called Kadir van Lohuizen. And so he has done a lot of photography also on climate change. And he's traveled all over the world and make pictures, let's say, of the impact of glaciers or ice mountains falling apart, of drought. And it is actually an extremely powerful way also to engage with this topic. Because, of course, we all know how urgent this is. And still, we all also go on with our lives. But then if you have the power of an image in front of you, it can sometimes also really speak much more than words and make things very clear. So I think that is also why photography is such a powerful tool. Again, yes, context is important, but I think what was interesting about, for example, this exhibition by him is that he really traveled the world. There were actually so many places where he still saw this problem of climate change coming back. So making it also very unavoidable, let's say, to tackle it and to engage.
And by the way, he is exhibiting here at a Challenging Times exhibition, Kadir. So it's a great exhibition. You should visit.
And Karim, any last words on code of ethics and when working, especially outside of the local, work on a lot of regional and international projects. So
I think, yes, I think there is a huge moral responsibility. And like Marwa was saying, you need to respect privacy, you need to respect your moral compass, you need to keep on pursuing what you really believe in. And that would definitely reflect on your work. So, I mean, we should all by now know what's right and what's wrong. We're grown-ups, we're human beings, and it's enough of messing up, and you should just follow that intuitively. If you follow your intuition, you're definitely going to do the right thing.
very optimistic overview.
That's myself.
On that
That's
human
myself,
world.
yeah.
That would end all evil.
No, but I mean, we need to believe in that constantly. Otherwise, we lose a lot of humanity. I mean, at least we need to practice it, believe in it. And there's always optimism. And that's why my message is done through poetic work rather than intense, in-your-face work. I believe in both, but I also believe in this soft message that goes through, because it really infiltrates all levels of both society and ideologies and manifestos. It just goes through. Not just beauty, I mean, the piece was extremely heavy. It was really debating the futility of history and that no one learns from history. It was coming from a very negative area of where I just was so down of older generations that have never learned the lesson from.
Where can we see this?
It's on Vimeo. It's called Caught Up Somewhere Down. It's a very heavy piece, and Marwa knows it. We belong to the same ideology and the same ethos. But again, the beauty of art is being able to express different means and mediums and voices. Otherwise, it's all the same.
Well, I have a final question for you, and this would be, what would you want the impact of this edition of Cairo Photo Week to be?
Definitely focusing on education. I mean, the impact on the ground, and even exhibitions. We always, not just the massive number of lectures and diverse lectures, but also, and workshops and portfolio reviews, but also the exhibitions is an educational experience. We always choose exhibitions that are even by young artists like Divas of Arabia. It's a fashion-based documentary fashion exhibition. Also, it's a learning experience. And this edition, the impact, like it was like last time, it goes and it stays online. We will post, we will upload all the talks. Already, all the cinema talks are streamed live. We couldn't afford 2 stages, so we only did 1 stage. It's streamed live. Anyone can watch it on YouTube if he misses out, if he doesn't feel like coming down to downtown. But please come. And this stage will be uploaded after. So it's a lifetime content, educational content that is available for free on our YouTube channel. So if this is the impact that you are talking about, yes, we want people to network and to meet and to work and to engage young photographers with established ones. So this is the whole point, is education and connecting.
And the diversity, like we were saying. I mean, having Divas of Arabia on your way in to World Press Photo, this speaks words, in my opinion. I mean, both carry their own message, both reach out, and they really promote the coexistence and the different way of expressing your own message. That's the core of what we should be doing, and that truly exists on this platform.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Marwa. Thank you, Karim. Thank you, Ambassador Devi. And thank you, everyone, for listening to us. And if there are any questions.
Hello, I have a question for Mrs. Devi. So as someone who's working in foreign affairs, so when working on international development projects, including photography projects, so how do you deal with things like issues like political correctness, or when it comes to diplomacy and dealing with countries who are the government is totalitarian, or maybe the people are kind of conservative. So how do you deal with exposing pictures that people may find sensitive? So how do you find diplomacy like deal with this issue?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. And I think what we would always do is we would try to engage, let's say, with people on the ground, let's say, so in different countries. And so in our cultural policy, we work through our embassies. And so, yeah, with our embassies that also have people, let's say, from the country itself working in the team, we would always ask them what is appropriate. So to make sure that, in fact, what you're doing is also well received by people, because it's also, it doesn't make sense maybe to come with an exhibition where there would not be any interest. And what we also try to do in this regard is we also really try to work on a demand basis. So we will not be the ones offering, let's say, artists or exhibitions, but we will react upon a request from a festival like Cairo Photo Week, or from other podiums. So the demand will come, let's say, from the creatives and the cultural sector of the country itself.
Thank you.
مش عايز تسأل يا أبو خليل؟
Hello, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on what is responsible photography. I think it's amazing that we have a photo week and that every year it's developing. And I just want to share a reflection more than a question, or maybe both. Do you think visual literacy should be something included in like school curriculums? Because we spoke a lot about how powerful photography is, and obviously we all believe that it's powerful. But I also think it's so dangerous, and that's what we don't discuss enough. And I think the terminology, like taking photos, needs to change, because what we say and how we communicate impacts our behaviors as visual storytellers. And the idea that we're taking something away has to kind of evolve rather than rather than just like working with people. And we're talking about responsible photography, so I think it's terminology and visual literacy needs to be not only in schools but to commissioners, like people working with embassies, development agencies who are commissioning photographers worldwide. I think sometimes they're further away from what happens, and like they could be commissioning a photographer from a completely different country just because they know they're reliable. But I think there is a direction to hiring people from their regions and having people represent themselves rather than having other photographers represent them. So I think this visual literacy and responsible photography is something we need to talk about more, and I think we touched on it a lot today, so thank you so much for that.
100%. 100%.
some of the international schools, but they are the most privileged. Of course, they do offer photography, but not in the sense of how the ethics and just the techniques. But I totally agree. And we had a little discussion with a young photographer yesterday with one of the masters sitting next to me, and we were discussing him being clever versus having some issues with the communication, with communication issues, and that actually backfires on his ethical code. So again, he was highlighting how clever he was, but the established photographer sitting next to me, he allowed himself into the conversation, and he told him ethics come first. Proper communication comes before talent. And he told him that his partner, that established photographer, has been staying at home for the past 12 years. Though he's one of the most brilliant, maybe one of the best photographers in like Egypt, but he cannot communicate properly, so he's losing business, work, and opportunities. So again, part of it is to communicate properly, be decent, be civilized, and of course, besides the talent. And so I totally second you. I just wanted to highlight this.
And I want to touch on your second point about commissioning works, whether from embassies or agencies, UN agencies, and so on. So as the Dutch embassy work, of course, with a lot of photography projects, whether with the UNICEF on gender issues and water issues. So all of these projects, they're done by Egyptian photographers. So, for example, one of them is, of course, with Ahmed Hayman, but there are much more. And we, like what you said is completely true, because you need the local context and you need people to actually represent like how they see the problem and they see the solution. And we do have a lot of collaborations between Dutch photographers or Dutch designers, or like across not only culture, but actually across all other sectors, like I mentioned, gender, agriculture, water, and sustainability. And it's always a two-way street. So it's never like one way dictating like this is how it should be done. It's always an exchange, always co-creation, like Devi mentioned earlier. So local context is always put into perspective when doing work.
Maggie.
I have a stage voice.
خدي ده.
So I just wanted to say something very simple. Always, when you're photographing somebody who's in a difficult situation, put yourself in their shoes. And if you think about how you would like to be portrayed or how your story should be told, if you can think that way, then it will help you reconsider how you do something. And I think that's very important, and it allows you to understand that they have a voice and you're respecting it. And it will really be a wonderful way to think about photographing and what you're doing and being responsible. It's just something to remember. Just always put yourself in their shoes.
خلاص, if we don't have any more questions, thank you very much, and it was lovely being here with you tonight. Thank you.
Everyone, please give it up for our speakers. And as a token of appreciation and gratitude for your presence here with us in Cairo Food Week. Yeah. First of all, Dina, Hafez, thank you so much for having. We really appreciate having you here in Cairo Food Week, so thank you very much. And Devi, thank you. Please give it up for Devi Vanderbeer. Thank you. Yeah, we're ready. Please give it up. Thank you, everyone. And please give it up again. Thank you.
What is it?
And live streaming was fully funded by the Dutch Embassy, by the way, and I want to highlight this. Thank you so much, Dina and the Dutch Embassy, for the impact. It's a lifetime impact. It's not just live streaming now, it stays online forever. So thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.